Contains themes of institutional gaslighting. Terminal number 016. Welcome, Site Director Weathers. Your current version of the automated passive amnestization system installed at Site-17 is up to date, and all systems are operational. What now? Access APIS version 09. System summary. APIS was developed in 2003 as a result of growing concerns over particular aggressive memetic cognitohazardous and infohazardous entities. This was primarily due to the acquisition of SCP-579, at which point it became evident to security specialists that allowing anomalous perception-based and knowledge-based hazards to remain in containment without an efficient method of counteracting a breach was no longer a possibility. Project APIS involved the installation of a complex network of memory-affecting memetic agents, gaseous amnestics, and concentrated electromagnetic fields. The project underwent extensive testing, and after a successful prototype was produced, now designated SCP-1346, the system was implemented exclusively at Site-17. The system uses amnestics administered through the ventilation shafts, latent memetic agents in various forms of media distributed to staff members, and electromagnetic fields constructed at set intervals throughout the facility. The fluctuating radio waves emitted from these electromagnetic fields are capable of subtly affecting the behavior of individuals who pass through them, and have been used to distract staff members from anomalous compulsion effects, completely obscure hazardous entities from views, and implant harmless memes for the purpose of resisting hostile variants in the wild. All of this allows for staff members to be perpetually resistant to memetic hazards contained on site, as long as they remain unaware of APIS existence. Access Site-17 APIS activation log. Emergency activation amnestics via on-site ventilation. Activation log amnestics. Accessing files. Please wait. Do not disconnect monitor. In some half-forgotten dream, I saw the earth tremble once and fall away as a giant tore through its outer crust, its cruel hands taking hold of mountains adjacent to its deep valley, and it lifted itself into the air. In another dream, I sat next to a woman I loved, and I held her hand as she cried softly, my body shielding her from her coworkers' inquiring glances. I told her everything was all right, that we were safe. She asked if I even knew what I was saying. She told me stories of entering Foundation facilities which have been ravaged by things which now feasted on the carcasses of gods. How whenever she passed over the body of another butchered researcher, whose skin was boiling at room temperature, she told herself she'd seen worse and believed it. They called her task force the sanitation crew behind their backs. They picked up the scraps of what Ketters left behind. If I had been awake, I would not have known her, but in my dreams I held her close, and I told her that she was fine. She was a researcher, not a soldier, and had never done anything like what she was describing. They were just dreams. She smiled at that. I have a window in my room, she said, and each night I look up at the moon and the stars, and I think about a dream I had. A dream? I asked, since I'd been having nightmares as well. I'm alone and armed in a straight corridor with 13 exits at the end. Through the fractured metal of the ceiling above me, all I can hear is the screaming horror of a titan, tearing through stone and ice. I held her softly as she cried a little more, and my hands found their way to her shoulders. I began to calm her, fingers drifting along her back, slipping under her hair, and feeling a scar on the base of her neck. It resembled the needle mark of repeated injections of an amnestic. What's this? I asked aloud. She shuddered. In my dream, she replied with a pause, I took the right exit. I entered a room of glassy brimstone. In the center was a beating heart of blackened ash and soot. The heart spoke to me. I murmured softly. What did it say? It showed me images of a titan of war and death, breaching the surface of the earth and lifting a great and terrible scream into the night sky. My eyes turned towards the moon, and suddenly the sky was filled by avenging warbirds firing missile after missile at its colossal form until it slowly receded into the earth again. How could I reply? My tongue was trapped by the confines of my throat, working desperately to tell her the truth. I have had the same dream, I said. Every night I can hear the Titan's voice as it tears through the ground and is driven back again and again. She was drifting away from me now. Her body was like a specter, escaping my embrace and slowly losing its color. I am glad, she whispered. She was gone. Skylar. Her name was Skylar, and my name is Natalie. Mobile Task Force Upsilon 1 has never existed. They never had a member named Skylar, and Site-17 has never been destroyed. There is nothing in the empty stretch of land a mile from the compound. There are no earthquakes which rock the site twice every month. There is no screaming either. If any of these things were true, I would remember. I would remember. The air grows thick in my room again, and the vents are whirring softly. They fill the room with odorless oblivion and coax me into my bed once again. In my half-buried dreams, I see her standing in the desert, at peace. Emergency activation, Memetic dissemination process. Activation log MDP. Accessing file. Please wait. Do not disconnect monitor. The memetic dissemination process and you. How to ensure proper subconscious inoculation among your site staff. Today, Dr. Weathers. The following are the contractual obligations imposed upon the reader. That you will not consciously acknowledge the memetic agent's presence within this document until they are explicitly referred to. 2. That you will not discuss these agents with any person or entity which has not undergone proper inoculation, i.e. accessing and reading this document. And 3. You will not attribute the anomalous antimemetic phenomena revealed by these memetic agents to any other antimemetic entity which may or may not exist. Your site has recently undergone a long period of maintenance, during which time the automated passive amnestization system was implemented site-wide. Congratulations, your site is 100% more secure. But what is this system, and how does it protect your staff? This is the second document in a comprehensive user manual that has been sent to your site and made available only to those with level 4 security clearance. In this guide, we will walk you through one of the most complex and essential aspects of the APIS, the Memetic Dissemination Process, MDP for short. Section 1. What materials should carry latent memetic agents? The type of materials which contain memetic agents vary. No meme is the same after all. Inoculation process Alpha Centaurian has been activated by keyword vary. Stand by for further instructions. In order for the memes to be most effective on the viewer, they ought to be lulled into a state of complacency with unimportant, repetitive, or unhelpful information. This makes media like office memos, instructional videos, and mundane reports ideal for memetic inoculation. Due to the tedious nature of overviewing content meant for subconscious inoculation, it will generally be analyzed by available D-class. You will probably not be called on to view these materials as site director. Section 2. How are memetic agents hidden inside content? Excellent question. Inoculation process Alpha Centurion confirmed 78% complete. Stand by for further instructions. Memes have a humble beginning, born from the silicon mind of an artificially intelligent conscript packed away in your site's server room. The artificially intelligent conscript involved in memetic production at Site-17 is Galileo.aic with an output of 5 viable memes a minute. Your local AIC will take an input document and downsize the produced memes to such minuscule dimensions that they can only be perceived subconsciously by the human mind. Once the documents are altered, they can be sent off to staff like any other notice. Section 3. What will the MDP protect my site from? In short, memetic and antimemetic entities which seek to do harm to your staff members. Memetic entities are commonly contained on site as their effects are demonstrable in test subjects and lend themselves to proper documentation. However, due to the properties of antimemetic entities and objects, documentation is usually impossible. Unfortunately, the Foundation lacks a true antimemetics division that could theoretically combat these threats. In fact, Site-17 may even harbor these entities or objects without your knowledge. But it's not all bad news. Here's an example of the MDP in action and how it can be very beneficial to your site. Thanks to the general use artificially intelligent conscript Indomitable.aic, greetings weathers, this document has been secretly inoculating you. That's right, there are special memes hidden in this text, smaller than the eye can see. Here's a list of antimemetic anomalies housed in Site-17, which would have been previously impossible to remember. Object, DRO. A DRO stands for a documentation-resistant object, is an esoteric item classification for complex antimemetic anomalies, which cannot be stored in standard SkipNet database. DRO 045. Summary of properties. Humanoid, incorporeal entity, wears a standard issue task force uniform, cannot interact with corporeal objects. Natalia, if you can hear me, I'm fine. Just like you said. I just need to hear your voice again. Are you there? Everything's so murky here. How did I end up like this? Can anyone hear me? Object, DRO 0355. A mass of unidentified black leathery material occupying the entrance to the Biological Research Division. The eyes of Abaddon see all, and they are not bereft of judgment. He cometh now from fires dark to bring justice from beneath. Remaining in its vicinity for more than 29 minutes results in several orifices manifesting on its surface. The orifices were vocalized to nearby individuals. Details of their comments are unknown. Object DRO 0678. Summary of properties. A cognitohazardous document which becomes antimemetic at an unknown point. A single sheet of paper is hardly a document, but yes, I am DRO 0678. I am currently located in containment locker Upsilon 57, restricted to level 4 DRO 0678 clearance. A certain Dr. Schuyler divined that the only way to stop my effect was to hide me from her corporeal peers. Fun fact, did you know that you have level 4 DRO 0678 clearance? There's a key in the safe under your desk as well. I wonder what it opens. Testing on said document has been inconclusive, although it has been confirmed that the test subjects cannot be observed after reading it. Object DRO 0002. Summary of properties. An antimemetic phenomena wherein seismic activity of unknown origins will impact Site-17, usually ceasing before the site experiences critical structural damage. Mandate from Indomitable.aic. DRO0001 does not exist. DRO0002 is an isolated phenomenon. The event is not observable to individuals within the area impacted by the seismic activity. Well, now that you know what you need to protect your staff from, you can trust Galileo.aic to do the work for you. The memes produced by your AIC are designed to stimulate your staff members into being subconsciously aware of most antimemetic entities at all times. If a hazardous and invisible entity is making its way down the hall towards one of your staff, they'll fear that something is off and hopefully have the sense to leave as soon as they can. But what about memetic entities? Good question, Director. Since memetic entities don't resist documentation and observation, current efforts by on-site AICs involve mitigating the oftentimes disastrous effects memetic objects can have on victims. Here's a helpful list of common memes your AIC will produce to fight memetic hazards. Designation MCA23. Name Right Senses. Effect. Protects against compulsive effects which induce tendencies towards homicide. Designation MCD86. Name Caffeine Boost. Effect. Protects against memes which siphon energy from their hosts. Designation MCS34. Name Firewall. Effect. Protects against memes which are attracted to information, memories, or emotions possessed by their hosts. Designation MCV52. Name What Alamo. Effect. Discourages the investigation or discovery of the MDP system. Section 4. What do I do if a staff member questions the MDP system? Detailed instructions on how to minimize the damage of an informational breach regarding APIS as a whole is available in the attached documents, The Ethics of APIS and You, for the good of your site. However, if one or more staff members discover the memetic agents within distributed material, despite the implementation of aforementioned MCV52 agent, there are certain options available to you as site director. Check out the attached document, Advanced MDP Application and Effective Cover Stories, for some helpful information if you find yourself in this unfortunate situation. See you soon, Overseer. Emergency activation, corrective electromagnetic devices. Accessing file, please wait, do not disconnect monitor. Greetings, Site Director Weathers. I am Indomitable.aic, a general-use artificially intelligent conscript used by Foundation Archival Director 05-9. How can I help you today? Access AMEC file name DRO0001. Warning: the file you are attempting to access can only be retrieved by members of the Overwatch Command and/or a unanimous decision by the Ethics Committee Tribunal. Input clearance voucher. A clearance voucher? I will access 05-9's clearance log. Note that if no voucher exists, I will have to deploy MTF Alpha 1, red right hand. Do you wish to continue? Continue. Understood. Give me a moment to access the external RESA network. Oh my, an O5 orientation? That certainly changes things. My apologies, Overseer-to-be. Access file DRO001. Accessing AMEC database. Item number DRO0001. Level 6 Cosmic Top Secret. Containment class Esoteric. Secondary class Ignacy. Disruption class Eki. Risk class Critical. Special containment procedures. The area of land subject to DRO0001's manifestation attempts have been declared AL908, although the antimemetic properties of AL908 render it essentially self-containing. Personnel stationed at Site-17 ought to be made aware that unauthorized entrance to AL-908 will result in the trespasser being terminated upon recovery. Due to the substantial risk discovery of DRO-001 poses to Foundation personnel at Site-17, a site-wide system of behavioral control has been implemented to discourage the discovery of DRO-001 or documentation of its anomalous properties. This system, labeled the Automated Passive Amnestization System, APAS, has been summarized in primary document 001.dro. What is APAS? During a given Essophysical manifestation event, MTF Zeta 5, Lazarus Abominables, will engage with the entity until its eventual return to its subterranean origin point and subsequent demanifestation. If any staff members become aware of this engagement or any structural damage inflicted upon Site-17, the Automated Passive Amnestization System will enter Omega 09 operating procedures. Archived Containment Procedures 0001 DRO Beta. Note the following procedures have been archived and are no longer considered applicable or effective to the referenced anomaly. Asset Profile 0001.dro. Name Dr. Tanya Schuyler. Age 27. Signed Object DRO-0001. Priority Status Extreme. Description: Sole remaining member of MTF Upsilon 1, born from flesh and metal. The remaining team killed in initial exploration of Site-17 during DRO-0001's first documented manifestation. Asset forcibly terminated the event by unknown means and was amnesticized upon recovery. Asset reassigned to Site-17 as junior researcher, Dr. Tanya Schuyler. Non-essential records of MTF Upsilon 1 expunged. Function: Asset 0001 DRO possesses a partial resistance to DRO-001's antimemetic properties and has demonstrated the ability to forcibly initiate a demanifestation event. If MTF Zeta 5 is incapable of subduing DRO-001, Asset 0001.DRO's implanted Class R remote repression amnestic will be deactivated. Description: DRO-001 is a large-scale antimemetic entity which continually attempts to manifest within baseline reality. Manifestation events thus far have always occurred within a location roughly 1.5 kilometers from Foundation Site-17, denoted AL-908, and result in significant geological disturbance as DRO-001 manifests in an unknown subterranean location and attempts to breach the surface. All attempts have been forcibly aborted by constant aerial bombardment by MTF Zeta 5. DRO-001 has demonstrated antimemetic characteristics, which can only be offset by specialized memetic inoculation, standard for Foundation's internal antimemetic entity catalog, AMEC. These antimemetic characteristics have included, but are not limited to, the following: rendering any human or humanoid within the vicinity of its manifestation event incapable of perceiving both it and the geological damage sustained by its manifestation, rendering all personnel located at Site-17 incapable of perceiving it or the structural damage inflicted upon Site-17. This excludes both personnel who have undergone specialized inoculation and Asset 0001.dro, rendering any documentation of it or its anomalous effects both antimemetic and cognitohazardous. Bypassing DRO-001's antimemetic effects through either nestic use or subconscious inoculation have resulted in the following: Condition: viewing documentation of DRO 0001. Result: initiation of a manifestation event. Viewer becomes a DRO 0355 instance. A sentient mass of unidentified black material. Anomaly summarized the memetic dissemination process in you. Condition: becoming cognizant of a manifestation event. Result: DRO 001 becomes aware of Site-17, resistance to injury elevated substantially. Condition: viewing DRO 0001. Result: unknown. In addition to its status as a large-scale aggressor, DRO 0001 also possesses Essophysical. Essophysical entities are capable of passively exerting an effect on baseline reality and are generally unobservable due to their omnipresence and non-physicality, characteristics which remain poorly understood. A summary of DRO 001's passive effect is included below Addendum 0001.dro.3. Addendum 0001.dro.1. Attached correspondence initial manifestation event. To Senior Researcher Dr. Alan Weathers. From Foundation Administrative and Logistical Director 058. Subject transferred to Site-17.
Dr. Weathers, it has been determined by the Overseer Council that an informational briefing regarding the circumstances of your transfer would better facilitate your role as Provisional Site Director. Be aware that the following information is confidential, and any unauthorized reproduction of it is an offense punishable by immediate expulsion from the Foundation and application of a Class C amnestic. You are being transferred to Site-17 due to a catastrophic containment failure, which occurred several months ago. The instigating force of this failure was the introduction of a potent antimemetic entity, which resulted in personnel being unaware of the damage to both Site-17 and the containment chambers within the lower floors of the facility until several Keter-class entities breached containment. Due to this, proper lockdown procedures were not executed, and the facility sustained immense structural damage. Personnel sealed several hazardous entities within the lower floors and subsequently evacuated, still not aware of the aforementioned antimemetic entity. During the initial recovery effort by MTF Upsilon 1, born from flesh and metal, the entity terminated all members of the task force except Asset 001.dro, who remained partially aware of the entity through the exploration. After retreating from the compound, Asset 0001.dro engaged with the entity and demonstrated an unknown and potentially anomalous ability, which succeeded in demanifesting DRO 001. Asset 001.dro was amnesticized upon recovery and has remained on site as Dr. Kanya Schuyler and will be deployed if the entity reappears and threatens your facilities. Measures to ensure the future security of Site-17 are being discussed, and due to the large number of anomalous entities contained on site, it is unlikely operations will cease indefinitely. As Provisional Site Director, you have been tasked with ensuring the facility remains secure until proper measures are enacted. Any further communications and inquiry ought to be directed towards Minerva.aic, my personal, administrative, and logistical AIC. Overwatch wishes you well in your new position.
058 Foundation Administrative and Logistical Director. Addendum 0001 DRO.2. Excerpt: Intro to Essophysics, Intrinsics, and How to Contain Them. Excerpt taken from page 38, detailing the author's initial impressions of the department during her first week of employment. More obvious than Preston's clear infatuation with me was that Essophysics was really the study of nothing at all. It was a theory based on foggy historical accounts from cultures without the scientific literacy to understand the Earth's rotation. Unlike the Department of Extratemporal Studies or the Memetics Division, there were only a handful of anomalies officially considered under our jurisdiction. As was put in a department-wide meeting, it was no surprise to me that this meeting was attended by every exophysicist in the Foundation and amounted to only 20 people. I have transferred here because I had been told it was a step upwards in the strict Foundation hierarchy, and my faith in that statement was very quickly waning. I approached the leader of the department, one Dr. Genevieve, and asked how our department managed to stay afloat. Her response eradicated my obvious reservations. I could see her eyes slowly gaze as she took herself back to a time and place I was not privy to. In a bygone land, she said, I once saw a fissure torn through stone and ice, and between the two insurmountable cliffs I sensed a god. I knew that what I bore witness to, cloaked in a shadowy maelstrom of hate unfathomable, was the being which rides behind the heart of man and one day may soon overtake us. She turned to me, her eyes both cruel and understanding. I contain things more powerful than gods, Doctor. We are the first line of defense against the existential threats of time and death. That job is one I will always cherish. Her words always resonated with me, even when I was again reminded of our limited supply of anomalous subjects. I now know why we are here. Because if there were no one willing to contain the threats under our care, we may all be lost. Addendum 001 DRO.3 Emergency Code Phantasma read in effect. DRO 001 Manifestation Event completed. Asset DRO 0001 presumed terminated. Code Phantasma read declared. On January 4th, 2010, a manifestation event was detected by on-site artificially intelligent conscript Galileo.aic. MTF Zeta-5 engaged with Class 8 Vanguard fighter jets and thaumaturgically enhanced Lucian-grade warheads. Engagement was ineffective. Secondary engagement tactic Hammer Down protocol initiated. Secondary engagement ineffective. Asset 0001 DRO Class R's Amnestic deactivated. Asset briefed by Site Director Alan Weathers. Asset to deploy to engage entity. Engagement unsuccessful. Fate of asset undetermined, presumed neutralized. 3 hours since the initiation of the event, DRO 001 vocalize. Because the speech was presumably heard by all personnel at Site-17, the automated passive amnestization system entered Omega-9 operating procedures at this time. The vocalization was recorded by on-site monitoring device.
When the earth first felt the dread grip of death, you knew of me. When your species first crawled from the mud and had the right sense to weep, you heard my voice. When a towering monolith was constructed to contain the encroaching army which rides over endless fields of ash and waste, you knew my name. I am Apolloyon. I am a titan of chaos and death. You have attempted to contain me, and you have failed. You have attempted to combat me, and you have failed. You will attempt to destroy me, and you will fail. I am Apolloyon, and I have no equal.
MTF Zeta-5 enacted Dying Breath Protocol as DRO 0001 emerged completely onto the Earth's surface. AL-908 was irradiated in the process, surrounding land scorch. Site-17 experienced critical structural damage and entered appropriate lockdown procedures. DRO 001 was unaffected by MTF Zeta-5's Dying Breath Protocol and began to exit AL-908. demanifesting after leaving the area. 5DRO-001 eyes only. Signature key accepted. Essophysics is the study of beings given great and terrible power over our universe. It is the study of embodiments. But what is embodied by a thing no one can know? A titanic being hidden from the eyes of even the most discerning doctors and researchers. Vocalizations heard by the staff members at Site-17 were not the first time DRO-001 ever spoke. MTF Zeta-5 reported hearing sounds emerging from the pit as they deployed their warheads. A single word coming from the abyss and pointed upwards in screaming rage. DRO-001 does not want to be known. It does not desire to be understood, or to be studied, or to be looked over by Foundation researchers residing safely behind bulletproof glass. It wants to be free. Command, coming in over the drop zone, having trouble seeing the area itself, setting warheads to self-guided. Understood. Report before deployment. External sensors indicate incoming turbulence. Jesus, Command, do you hear that? Negative. It's saying something. It's saying something to me. Elaborate, Valkyria. Turbulence increases dramatically. Zeta-5 Valkyria struggles to regain control of the aircraft. Command, I'm setting external sensors to audio. Understood. External command enabled. Captured audio transcribed.
Foundation, 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 foundation.
Zeta-5 Valkyria deploys warheads. Feed disabled. DRO-001 is the anomalous, and the anomalous will be contained.